Welcome, listeners, to the Visionary Leader's Mind podcast, where we explore the ideas of what a visionary leader is, what it works and feels like, and how to develop that capability further in yourself. Our guest today is Allison DeFord. And Allison, thank you for being here.
I'm excited.
Yeah, let's see how the adventure goes. So I think the first thing we'll start with is tell us about your business and how you kind of got into it. And
Well, I'm the founder and resident trailblazer of Felt Marketing. We specialize in marketing for manufacturers, and that was one of those things that I didn't choose. It kind of ended up choosing me, which is similar to the story of most of the people, manufacturers that we work with. Um, and it's also about helping them stop wasting time and money on marketing that doesn't grow sales. And I see that happening a lot. And the way to do that is to create a system, and a system that is based on emotional connection. So you want to connect to the heart of your customer so that you're not just seen and heard, you're felt. You have this deeper, more meaningful relationship with people, and it makes it easier and faster for them to like you, trust you, and choose you. I started out as a designer, and it morphed into strategy and marketing. And because I was never the kind of designer who could just say, "Oh, you need a website? Okay." I would say, "Why?" I needed to know why. And that's, I think, an important part of marketing is understanding the why and understanding who you're doing this for and on behalf of. You're not marketing at people. So that's a little bit about me and my philosophy.
good, I like that, Allison. That kind of brings up that I'm a, I've, I've realized part of the reason why I'm doing this podcast is because, and around visionary leaders' capability is I'm a compulsive why asker. I wanted to know why almost my whole life. So why is a visionary leader different than, and their mind, and why is it, and how is it different? So that's kind of the basis for this whole show, is the inquiry into that, the why, if you would. Okay, so in that line, let's define a visionary leader as somebody who, give us your definition of a visionary leader.
A visionary leader to me is somebody who sees what others don't yet, somebody who is forward thinking, like a future thinker, but also very present. Um, I've met a lot of leaders, and if you're a past thinker, I don't think that that qualifies you as a visionary leader because you're constantly stuck back here in what has already happened. And so to me, a visionary leader is somebody who's curious, not afraid to take a risk or fail, and who encourages people to do the same. Let's see, let's try this. What's the worst that can happen? Let's set out to fail because that's the only way we're going to get to a success is by trying, stumbling, getting back up. Um, and to me, a visionary leader gives you the space to do that.
I like that. Give themselves the space and everyone around them. I
Mm-hmm.
like that. I like that a lot. So in your business, we have kind of two versions of visionary. One is intuition, because I honestly believe you cannot be a visionary leader without having that part of your mind and capability fully developed or in pursuit of that, right? So that bucket is open. So intuition, and then the sharp or quick version of that is an epiphany. Tell us about a moment when you had an epiphany, and then let's kind of dig down into that, what it felt like, that sort of thing.
Well, I have, I don't know, probably multiple epiphanies every day, but a major epiphany in business would be I think about 4 years ago, and this may sound woo woo or strange to some people listening, but I feel like the universe was trying to send me a message about my business. And the model that I had with a creative partner at that time, it was no longer working. And the epiphany was, how come we're working so hard and we're doing all the things and the new business isn't coming in that, equivalent to that? And that was an epiphany to me. It was like that. This is it feels like the epiphany happens first and then my intuition backs it up. And so I had to make some big changes. And as soon as I did that, the business started coming in.
That's really fascinating. So, what did the epiphany, if you would, what did it feel like when it popped into your mind or your heart, right?
I think for me, it usually feels like an aha. The thought comes to my mind that, hey, I think this is actually what's going on. And it's usually kind of an out of body thing for me. It's like I'm looking up at myself and down on myself at the same time, and I think, huh, this this seems like a real thing, like something I need to pay attention to and think further on.
So, it just kind of fits into a space you've already had, you just didn't know you had. It's like it drops in and it says, oh, that feels completely accurate.
Yeah.
Okay. Intuition, the level of when an intuition shows up, is it as bright? I don't know. There's no terms for epiphany. Is it describe intuition as opposed to, because you use that kind of juxtaposition, describe intuition as opposed to epiphany. How do those two compare?
It's interesting that you just said what you said, and you do that a lot. So it's what's brilliant about you. Where you talked about epiphany, like light, and then as soon as you said intuition, I felt dark come into my brain. And what I mean by that, at least for me, what I see and what I feel is an epiphany usually feels like a bright light, like I call it a brick to the head. And intuition to me feels like it's from my internal self or soul. And for some reason, it's a dark place, but not dark as in negative. It's
Homer? So, kinesthetically, if you would, kinesthetically being the feel of it, kinesthetically, then intuition is a calm thing,
mhm.
and an epiphany is more like electricity on fire.
Yes.
And so, what you've just described to me, how I would interpret that is intuition is your soul speaking to you, right? Your intuition, intuitive mind actually speaking to you, but it's calm. There's like no turbulence in it at all. It just is there, and you know precisely that it's accurate. It's like that's the point of epiphany or of intuition, excuse me. But epiphany feels like something you've been asking for, either consciously or unconsciously, but something you've been asking for. And all of a sudden, there's this bright light drops down into you. It's like divine intervention, if you would.
Mm-hmm.
That's to me what an epiphany feels like. But they're both using the same. I know that it's absolutely true when it shows up, either way. Does that
Yes.
sound accurate?
Glennon Doyle refers to that intuition, that inner. She calls it the knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since I heard her use that phrase, it's trust your knowing, because it it it's wise, and it's usually, or if not always, spot on accurate. And I think sometimes we resist the knowing, we resist the intuition. Maybe we feel unsure or afraid, but ultimately I think it's a guide. And when we pay attention to it and we act on it, I think good things happen.
So when you listened, your business got better.
Hmm.
I love that. That's pretty fun.
Prior to that, I was resisting and I kept doing the same thing and expecting different results.
That sounds to me like an Einstein quote, right?
Yes, I
Keep
can't
doing the
disagree.
same thing over and over, and son of a gun, the results are just the same. Somehow
Yeah.
things don't change, right?
Well,
So,
they say we have the perfect systems in place for the results we're getting right now.
right.
And again, I did not make that up. I can't remember who said it, but it's so true.
Yeah. Well, we have routines. I think the human being is a compilation, all our character, our life, everything is this full blown set of habits. And what I want people to get to the place where they understand is if you start shifting your habits deeper, first off, awareness is the first one you have to have. In order to build intuition, you have to build awareness, self-awareness. It's like, what's the difference between the thinking that's my analytical thinking mind and the thinking that's my intuitive mind? There is a distinct difference when you hone your awareness of what's going on in your mind. And the tool I've been using for decades is meditation, because the whole point of meditation is to sit and watch. Like, okay, I'm watching my body, right? Yeah, but my definition of meditation is first you sit and you withdraw your active will out of your physical body and you hold it still, not forcefully, but you just allow it to be. And then over time, which I thought was a miracle when it started happening, your emotions slow down because you've withdrawn your active will from your emotions and they eventually become still. And that was like completely mind boggling to me. And then over time, more time, we're talking a couple more years, my analytical mind, which is words and numbers, removing my active will from that and watching, eventually my analytical mind got to the place where it was still. And then I was operating in what I call the intuitive mind, which is concepts only. So then I could tell the difference between the analytical mind and its words and numbers and ideas and habits, if you would, and the intuitive mind and its impressions or insights, because it's a softer, calmer feel. And you have to be a little calmer in order to recognize the distinction between the two. And then, of course, there's other adventures above that, if you would. So we've talked about that. My next question that I kind of wanted to is, who do you admire as a visionary leader and why?
Well, I think about all the kind of usual suspects that one could mention. And, a lot of people would say, oh, Steve Jobs or, you know, and for me, my answer might be a little surprising. For me, it's women like Mel Robbins, like Sarah Blakely from Spanx, um, Glennon Doyle. It's people who have stumbled and fallen and struggled and then had a dream, and they could see not the finish line, that's not the right thing, but they had this incredibly strong intuition that was guiding them forward towards something bigger. And they would not be detoured until they got to that place. And the other thing that I love about these particular women that I mentioned, and why I think they're visionary, is that they use their intuition and they trust it even when it scares the hell out of them. And they're very transparent and vulnerable. And to that's and this may you may not agree and others may not agree, but to me, I admire a visionary leader who's not afraid to show you their flaws, who's not afraid to be vulnerable, and also someone who has great empathy and curiosity, and they're tenacious and they're also they're also very willing to let others lead as well. I feel like they're selfless, maybe, but confident enough that they are happy. They don't have to be. It's not like they're beating their chest and saying, "Look at me, I'm a visionary leader." They just are.
There's a neutral aspect to being a visionary. I like, you just gave me this like whole list of things we can all aspire to, which is, in no particular order, empathy, the intuition, the ability to listen to it, right, and act on it. So the vision, they're committed
Mm-hmm.
to their vision, they have courage, they have empathy, they're transparent, and underneath that, there's a calmness that happens when you're certain about who you are. So if you're certain about your character and you've done the work there, that's actually the foundation for intuition development. Certainty in your character. It's like, I choose this consciously. I'm not doing it reactively or unconsciously. So they're conscious people. That's brilliant. Thank you.
My pleasure. I think it's to me it's powerful when a leader says, "I don't know. I'm not sure, but by God, let's go find out. Let's go find out together." It's to me that's where courage comes into play. Is that whole idea of jump and the net will appear. I feel like when you are on the right trajectory, just kind of like the story I told earlier about the universe in my business, I was not on the right trajectory at that time. And when I shifted, and I think a visionary leader, I'm not equating myself to those people per se, but I feel like you're unafraid, not unafraid, you can be very afraid. You're willing to shift up, as Steve Chandler always says, shift up, which means you keep going forward, and you aren't detoured by, you figure out how to go around the wall. There's got to be another path.
I think the definition or the description of courage isn't the lack of fear, it's the willingness to go forward. So courage is important. Courage in life is important. The other one that you mentioned just now that kind of described in your description is curiosity. Mm-hmm. I have a drive of curiosity. It's like almost in every cell of my body. And I think you do too. It's like, what's possible and what can we achieve? So if you look inside and you look outside, you're constantly scanning, who am I aware of? Who am I aware of that I am? In the kind of evolution of, if you take each human being, as to my chemistry background, if you take each human being as a beaker, our skin is our beaker, our being is our beaker, and you throw different ingredients into it, how does this new ingredient add to who I am, or does it take away? And if you put one new ingredient in at a time, you know the differences. So if I focus on, let's say I have a list of values, which is a constant exercise of mine. I have a particular value I want to grow in, let's say being, as you would, courageous or curious or whatever. I realized at one point in my life I needed character strength because I was doing cold calling at that time and it terrified me. But I was going to grow my business. I was determined. And so I put strength as my character strength, as my overarching value for a period of time. It was a year. And I filtered all my major decisions through that word, through that characteristic. And I learned from myself and I learned from the word how to grow that in me. So that was kind of one of the practices that I did early on in myself and my practice. So, okay. how have you grown your epiphany slash intuition ability? How has that kind of developed since that 4 year, that one epiphany last 4 years ago and kind of others in your life? How have you grown that?
I would say through practice. And my practice consists of I adopted meditation, I adopted journaling, I adopted, I've always been spiritual, but I felt like it was very necessary to tap into that, I think, on a deeper level. um, and to me, I believe in God and whatever, but for me, what I'm talking about is this deeper connection with the world around me, like a deeper spiritual connection to the universe, and stepping, maybe sitting with myself, which is what I do in meditation. I've been doing it for a number of years. It's still incredibly difficult for me on most days to just be still, right? To just observe. Um, and I think in doing these things every day, and also exercise, it's this, I think, time to allow myself to stop thinking and to just be still and listen, and be aware. So I think these practices have helped me in journaling, in really every day. How do I want to show up today? Um, Wins, ahas, and losses, which I do with my super friends every Wednesday for the last decade. Every single Sunday, we each fill out our wins, losses, ahas, monthly goals, what's coming up this week personally, what's coming up this week professionally, and what are the outcomes. That's a new one that we added. The outcomes are, okay, based on all these things, what's the result? How will I feel? And so doing this work really for the last decade, but thank God I started when I did, but the last 4 years, it literally has saved me through lots of turmoil in life and changes and whatnot. I I always, no matter what's going on, I feel connected and I feel focused and I'm not afraid to be still and not have all the answers. They'll come.
So I want to take you back to the word connected.
Mm-hmm.
Describe that a little bit. Connected to what? From who? From where to where are you connected?
Connected really to every human, animal, plant on the planet. It's this feeling, this realization of, a lot of us spend our days in our own head, and it's me, 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 me. And when you step outside of yourself and you realize, hey, I don't know, that person over there that seems to have a completely different view than I do, um, we're still connected. We're still part of the same energy and the same, cells and makeup. And it's just this bigger realization for me that it's helped me be incredibly empathetic and understanding and have a greater respect, I think, for everything around me. And somebody, my podcasting partner in crime, Ray Zaganto, sent me a book recently called Tracking Wonder.
Ooh, I like that.
And I think because of this connectedness that I feel based on my practices, um, this book, it was so natural. When I read it, I thought, well, of course. So every day, no matter what I'm doing, excuse me, I can be sitting in my office and I look out the window and there's this little hummingbird. It literally will just come right up to the window and I stop what I'm doing and I'm just in awe. I wonder. It's pure wonder. to just really soak up that moment. And so
Awesome.
it's lots of those little moments throughout the day
Yeah.
that, and because I'm aware, because I'm paying attention, that's that connectivity. So I feel this strength and energy from that.
Ah, there we go. Thank you. I
Sorry, that was
appreciate
probably.
that. That's okay. No, 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 that's fine. I mean, I sit back and study how we're designed, literally. So to go back to your field connection to everyone, right? It's
Mhm.
like, do you know anybody, unless they have some deep brain damage, who doesn't think I am, right? They use the word I. There's a center of consciousness in each human being. Doesn't matter what the outside looks like, doesn't matter, anything. It's like everyone has this center of consciousness. And if you're curious about that, kind of all the different layers of who we are, we start with that center of consciousness. Then we add, if you would, the intuitive mind. That's the one I'm aware of, concepts, thinking just in concepts. And then thinking in words and numbers, translation from concept into words and numbers, and then down to the emotions, which started really early. I honestly think we start making emotional decisions the moment we're born in this body, right? And then we have the physical body. So we have all of those layers in us, and we don't think about what runs that. The I runs that, the driver runs that, right? But then we don't pay attention to, which levers do I push, which buttons do I push in order to kind of grow that. So I'm on a course. I want people to understand that they are magnitudes more brilliant than they think they are.
Mhm.
And their self-awareness teaches them that they are. And we do that by, we put something out, we look at our life, and all the details are there. We don't stop to measure each part of it and say, if I work on this, it will move from here to here. So comparative analysis, if you would, right? Comparative analysis of our brilliance. Work on being aware, and you will become more. And when you have the more available on your dashboard to kind of poke this button and this one and get different results back, it's more fun. I want
Absolutely.
everybody, I want everybody to become their own version of a visionary leader. And that means they have to go at least listen and determine the difference between the analytical mind and the intuitive mind, and coax, if you would, coax the intuitive mind into louder volume so that they can hear it. Mine, after years of meditation, is really loud. It doesn't, it is just, it's not like a gut feel or a little tapping or this little whisper on the side. It's like sometimes it just flat out yells at me. Like, here's it is. This is what it is. Be calm, Brad. Go this direction. But I don't want to go that direction. It terrifies me. Good. Get over it and go anyway. So that's Brad's conversation.
Well, I think when you just said the word visionary leader a moment ago, I had this thought, and I feel like it's worth sharing. I think sometimes we get caught up feeling like a visionary leader. We could only be that if we're running a large company, or we're an author, or a, leader of a country, or a, a
God
state.
help
And
us.
I think what I hope people realize is tied in with what you just said, is you hope that all people can tap into this, tap into their brilliance, which I think the majority of people never do. They sell themselves short. They are suffer from comparisonitis. um Fill in the blank. They never tap into their brilliance. You can be a stay-at-home mom, and you can be a visionary leader. You
Well, if
can,
you have children, you're leading them into adulthood,
yeah,
right? You're demonstrating to them what adulthood is.
exactly.
So
So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have a certain job, or a certain level of success to be a visionary leader. Just my
I,
opinion.
I have a client who thinks his janitor is visionary, is brilliant. and they
I
have
love that.
conversations. I love that. He's pretty cool, but his conversations with his janitor, right, are deep and involved and pretty visionary. It's pretty wonderful. So I love that. Doesn't matter what your station is in life. It's quite brilliant. So I think is there anything else you'd like to add before we wander off?
No.
Okay,
Feels complete.
good. Thank you. And we're going to wrap up here. Thank you for listening thank you for being on the show, Allison. I appreciate it.
For having me.
Thank you for listening to the Visionary Leader's Mind. And for my listeners, remember, let's see if we get this right. Remember to keep pursuing your best and learning so you can share with the world your hidden brilliance. Thank you.